We're gonna start our new trip through Fantastic Four media. We've done the radio show, that's on the podcast. Now we're gonna do the cartoon shows, beginning with Hanna-Barbera's Fantastic Four from 1967. This episode is the first episode of the cartoon show, but the 22nd issue in the Fantastic Four series. To help me is my boss and all-around hero, Ryan.
Hello.
This your first time seeing this?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen any of this cartoon show before?
Not really, no. I'm familiar with Hanna-Barbera, but not so much the Fantastic Four show.
The theme music, what did you think of that?
I'm familiar with this, the original Fantastic Four theme, so it's always got to be good.
The first time seeing this, you're not that new to the Fantastic Four anymore. You've gone over some comics with us, and you've seen a little differences from different eras. Of course, this is the Lee Kirby era, where you're probably most familiar with.
Off the bat animation, it's very good. It's nothing like the other Hanna-Barbera shows, I don't believe, except maybe something like the Scooby-Doo. But that's probably it. Other than that, it's definitely its own show, and you probably wouldn't know it's Hanna-Barbera unless you actually waited for the credits and stuff like that. So I definitely like that. The plot, I think we had mentioned, it begins from a later issue, but it does start with the Moleman, which the actual comics do.
Moleman is their first villain in the comics and here. This Moleman seems to be a little taller than the Harvey Elder you're used to.
Yeah, and he's not as, I guess, round.
What do you think about this version of the Moleman?
I wish he looked a bit more, I guess you can say grotesque, right? Because the first Moleman, at least from the comic, he has this almost, I guess you can say, like this human-like mole look to him. He looks very, like, penguin kind of thing. I wish that the animation had that as well.
This Moleman's look comes from, Kirby didn't draw it. It was an episode of The Avengers, believe Iron Man, and Don Heck did the artwork. That's where this Moleman comes from. It is not from the Kirby comics, even though the rest of the story clearly is. I prefer the rounder, more penguin-like Moleman, because it contrasts nice with the giant monsters he has.
Yeah.
And then the moloids that are actually smaller than him. It kind of casts him in that like arrogant king role, and I like that. I would like to look at how the four themselves are portrayed as compared to what you're used to in the comics. I think Thing's voice is brilliant.
Yeah.
I really like the Thing look. It looks like the old Mego figures. What did you think of this portrayal of Ben?
As you had mentioned, the voice, when I had first heard him, like the very first line he speaks, I think he has the first line in the show. Instantly, I thought, this is a good representation of Thing. His voice sounds how you would imagine it. It sounds like it does in the radio show. I guess it's very Thing-like. For the actors, I wish they did have that New York voice, though, like the New York accent kind of thing. Something like that might have been better. But as far as it goes for their voice and then the animation and stuff like that, very, very true to its originality.
Reed seems very dynamic to me in this. His voice sounds very dynamic. What did you think of the portrayal of Reed Richards and the way he's drawn?
He gives the leader of the four energy. So he has that very sure of himself voice. He's got the charisma of someone who should be the leader of the four. I think that is like nail on the head kind of thing. Kind of looks like a normal guy, but he is kind of a normal guy anyway. The animation for his stretching and stuff like that, it's really good. I like to see, especially for animation rather than like live action stuff like that. Live action's a bit easier to do with stretching, but the animation is really good. I kind of like that.
Sue, the invisible girl here, has her force fields, which of course she didn't for 21 issues of the series, but they picked this up at 22. The Sue hairstyle looks almost like she's out of Fantastic Four #1.
I enjoy seeing her use the force field. It gives her a little bit more of a dynamic role. Obviously, we know that she is this kind of person that can stop these plans. Originally, stops the villains most of the time in the comics. Giving her this extra little power here is something that it's always welcomed. There you go. This sort of power is always welcomed.
Let's also talk about, finally, your favorite character. That's why I saved him for last. And he has a very different look here than the early stuff.
Honestly, I don't think he looked too different from the Thing. Like, with his drawing, you can see the lines on his body, like, as they do in the comic. Just like the straight black lines that go all throughout his body. But when it goes for the actual, like, flying around with the flame on and all that stuff, it's very true to itself. It looks nice. It looks like real fire. or not real fire. It looks like he's actually on fire. It looks like he's actually, flying around, stuff like that. I definitely like the way they had portrayed it.
He's also very much the Mego torch. If you see the Mego toy, I love the way Johnny's handled in here. They did a really good job mimicking the comic. I really liked Defeated by Dr. Doom, the death traps that Doom used. But each one of them got out of that on their own, right?
Yeah.
Except for the very end when Johnny made the flaming images and saved them from the disintegrator balls. Here, they help each other. Thing saves Johnny, and later on, Reed saves Thing, and then later on, Johnny saves Reed and Thing. I mean, you see great death traps like Sue being in a transparent room where she can't find anything and there's a bomb that's going to blow up. She can't turn anything invisible or she can't do anything there. She can't put a force field over it because she can't find it. Johnny's in a room that freezes him. Thing is in a room full of like cotton stuff that's going to drown him. And Reed is in a room with literally no pores whatsoever. He has to do the chest expansion balloon thing to break out. These were all great little death traps that were used in this particular story.
Yeah.
What did you think of the teamwork here? What did you think of the traps? What did you think of this whole aspect of it?
Well, as the Fantastic Four, you like to see them helping each other. You like to see that teamwork. Because a lot of the time in the comics, it'll be one at a time they take the villain on. So you'll see Thing fight the villain once, and then he gets defeated. And then you'll see Torch take his turn, and then you'll see Mr. Fantastic take his turn. And then up until eventually they all come together at the very end. But seeing the dynamic with all of them and use their abilities to their fullest with each other is something that I think we should see more of. And I like to see. I thought that was interesting. The traps, definitely I liked, because I like the use of them in the Doctor Doom comic. But yeah, like Jack had mentioned, they get out pretty easily on their own. I feel like they weren't so much difficult to get out of for each of them as these ones were. Except for Thing. He got out of his pretty quickly. Just by
right, but then he got into trouble twice after that. Because he is the Thing. If that door hadn't been there, Ben had no way out.
Yeah, other than that, he would have been pretty lost. But yeah, it's just, these traps definitely fit, and they worked a lot better for each of their abilities. I think that was pretty cool.
What did you think of Moleman's plan to sink all the cities, and then Reed's reversal and sinking the island?
To the untrained eye, you probably think, why is Mr. Fantastic over here calling everybody to leave as soon as possible? But if you know anything about Reed Richards, then you know he always has a plan up his sleeve, and he's very quick on his feet. So he knows what he's doing. I never question his thinking. That's rule number one. Never underestimate Reed Richards.
He's called Mr. Fantastic for a reason, and it's not just because he stretches. My favorite thing about the Mole Man's plan was I like how he lured them. That is a problem the Fantastic Four have. They're in the middle of New York. Thing makes light of it by anytime we try to have any fun, somebody calls the cops, right? That's a joke, but I mean, the reality is that, that training in the middle of New York is pretty difficult when you guys have these superpowers. So offering an island for sale as bait to the Fantastic Four makes total sense that Mole Man's playing off of one of their problems. He wants to get them out of the way. So he can do what he was doing in episode 1. You remember the first time he was sinking nuclear plants.
Yeah.
He wants to sink these full-on cities and basically ransom them because Harvey is basically upset that some jerk in a green suit called him bad names. Harvey is a petty man. So he doesn't want the money as much as he wants to just destroy these cities. While the big battle with the Moloids are going on, Reed is being smart. Thing and Johnny is doing what they do. They're throwing down with the bad guys. Who's trying to prevent Mole Man from pushing the button that's going to kill them with her force field, which was a brilliant play on her part. But Reed disappears. And what is Reed doing? What Reed does. He turns the tables on the Mole Man. He basically sets up Mole Man's trap to be on the Mole Man and not on everybody else. To me, that is a perfect use of all of their characters.
Yeah. For pettiness, who would you say is more petty, Dr. Doom or a Mole Man?
I would say Mole Man's more petty. Now, Doom is, I think, more evil. Doom, he thinks he's doing the right thing. Harvey doesn't really. Harvey just wants revenge for people treating him like crap.
Dr. Doom's whole thing is getting revenge on Richard, right?
But he believes that him running the planet is actually for the betterment of the planet.
Okay.
He's got the pettiness. He's got the revenge on the Fantastic Four. But Harvey's whole thing is revenge.
Moleman just wants to be a menace.
It's just like, you guys were mean to me. I already have a kingdom with moloids that love me, giant monsters that love me. I mean, yeah, I don't have any girlfriends down here, but I'm accepted. You guys didn't accept me, so screw you all, you're all going to die. Some people didn't even get a chance to not accept him. I mean, it's like he lived in New York or something. He didn't live in Ohio, so why are you destroying Ohio, too?
Yeah.
You know, it's just that petty. Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, has that attitude, too. We're going to wrap this up with some final thoughts about this episode. These were weekly episodes on Saturday mornings in 1967. Ryan was not around in 1967, and even I wasn't around in 1967. I came a year later. And we're going to take the Wayback Machine, and we're going to go back to 1967 on a Saturday morning. If you had just watched this episode, would you watch the next episode, or would you say, I don't want to watch this anymore?
Oh, I definitely would watch the next episode. It had me locked in for the whole duration of it. What was 22 minutes, something like that? If this was on at the time, and I woke up, whatever time it was, 7 a.m. or whatever, and then it was a Sunday morning, or whatever morning they played it, I would definitely be tuning in every rest of the episode.
That's going to be a clean sweep for Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera, because I also would have, when I first saw these, I can cheat a little bit because, you know, I'm older than Ryan. When I first saw these on the Funtastic World of Hanna-Barbera, I had not yet been a Fantastic Four reader, because that's how young I was. I mean, Fantastic Four came into my life when I was about 10 or 11.
Okay.
Might have been 9, actually. But the point is, I saw these like when I was 6. I immediately I would wait. What the Fantastic World of Hanna-Barbera did, it was a 5 days a week show. And it had the Impossibles, the Galaxy Trio, Birdman, Space Ghost, Mytor, a bunch of the superheroes of Hanna-Barbera, other than the Super Friends who weren't around yet. They would show a different one every day. So the Fantastic Four would show up like every week and a half. And I was waiting with bated breath for those next episodes. So, yes, I would have tuned in big time on the next Saturday. Until next time, be fantastic.